And so today, my name is Mike Hoffman, and I wanted to tell you about mobility for injury reduction with our athletes. I picked this topic because I blew out my knee during sports, and I feel like it could have been prevented if I had learned anything about mobility beforehand. So, next slide, please. So, what is mobility? Mobility is the range of motion around a joint. It's not just range of motion, though. It's all-encompassing. It's strengthening the joint. Basically, what happens is athletes get kind of banged up during the season or off-season, overuse injuries. They start to get tight, right? Say shoulder muscles, and you can only move so far for the range of motion. And what we're trying to do is get that athlete to run through the full range of motion. So if something happens, if somebody pushes that arm, that they're not going to get hurt. Next slide. So the overall goal of mobility is to increase the range of motion to the joint and improve the movement and biomechanics of the joint. That includes the muscles, everything that surrounds it, tendons, ligaments, everything like that. It's a tool that globally addresses movement and performance problems. So what we're doing here is we're trying to enhance the athlete's performance by correcting whatever it is, their muscle imbalances, their joint imbalances, and mobilizing those joints. Next slide, please. So mobility for athletes. The most importantly is maintaining adequate mobility keeps joints healthy. If you think about it, muscles, we need that stimulation. So if we're working out, pushing weights up, we need that stimulation for those muscles to be healthy. It's the same with joints. We need to go through full ranges of motion for those joints to be healthy. And we also need load-bearing activities as well for those joints to run smoothly. If you think about a door that's left outside that never opens, right? When we go to open it 10 years later, what happens to that door? It sticks. It creaks, it groans, it moans, you try and pull on it. It's the same thing with an athlete. So that door doesn't want to open. It's the same exact thing. Again, I'm going to take the shoulder. So we're coming with an athlete, and that athlete's only using this much of mobility, this much range of motion, right? When we come to a spot where they need to get full mobility, that shoulder is going to creak and groan and moan the same way, and they're going to get injured. So that's exactly what we're trying to prevent here. Next slide. I just wanted to talk about some common types of injuries in sports that we all know of. You have Achilles tendonitis, groin strain, pulled muscle, hamstring's a big one that's very common, ankle sprains, shoulder injury, torn ligaments and tendons. These are basically soft tissue injuries that may or may not be prevented through mobility, but you can definitely reduce the risk of injury if we are more mobile. Next slide. So what is a soft tissue injury? I know this is probably common knowledge for most of us, but I figured I'd put it up there. A sprain is a simple stretch or tear of the ligaments. That's important. Strains are an injury either to a muscle or a tendon. So that's the difference between a sprain and a strain. You have tendonitis, or debatable tendinosis. It's a series of small stresses that repeatedly aggravate the tendon. And then we have bursitis, the swelling of the bursa, which is pretty painful, hard to get through. Next slide. So here's how long your athletes would be with a common injury of each area. So we have tendonitis. Acute recovery is a couple days to 2 weeks, and then chronic recovery is 3 to 6 months. The thing is, you obviously see the problem with acute recovery. Yeah, you're only out days to 2 weeks, and you tell guys to push through, push through, push through. But if you continually tell them to push through, they're out for 3 to 6 months. Now, you pick when that 3 to 6 months is. Think about that. Is it in the off season? Is it during the season? Do you want your star player playing at 50% because he can't run because he's got tendonitis in his knee? You know, that's not the best situation that we want to be in. Groin strain, 1 to 2 months. That's for a serious groin strain. You pull something in there. Pulled muscle, I put hamstring. Very common. People running. Baseball, basketball, football, any kind of sport where he really puts a lot of stress on their hamstring. And a lot of times we're quad dominant, so that hamstring is put under a lot of tension and a lot of stress. You got 2 to 5 weeks on a hamstring. That's 4 games during the season. That knocks you out of the bowl game, you know, for football. So we have a sprained ankle, a couple days. If it's pretty easy, pretty, you know, a relaxed injury, up to 26 weeks. 26 weeks is a long time for a sprained ankle. Then we have hip bursitis, up to 3 weeks. You guys, you have bursitis, you can't do anything really. I mean, that hip is so immobile, you can't move anything through the range of motion. They're out for 3 weeks. That's not even a question. So, next slide. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about ankle mobility and show you guys some stuff to maybe use in your program down the road. The lack of ankle mobility can lead to MCL, ACL, and meniscus strain, as can everything else with every other joint, you know, knee, hip, whatever. But I wanted to focus on the ankle and just show you a little bit of why I think mobility is important. And alright, so we're going to do a 10-minute squat test. He's not going to be in the squat for 10 minutes, but what would you would have your athlete do is acquire 10 minutes in the squat position. This is toes pointed forward, not out like our traditional squat when we're squatting in a weight room. The reason that we want to do this with toes pointed forward is because when athletes land, we want them to land with toes pointed forward. Coaches always say, if your toes are pointed out, you're committing, right? So you're gone this way. If you land like a race car, you're going straight. If you land with your wheels out here, you're not going anywhere. So the point I'm trying to make with this is if we take and we have an athlete turn out like this and he lands, now bend your knee, we have a valgus knee when that athlete lands. This is putting a lot of force onto the ACL, MCL, and the meniscus. So, of course, we always want athletes to land knees out. Of course, the perfect landing position would be similar to a squat, but in an athletic situation, that's not always going to happen. So we teach toes forward. Now, the big deal about the ankle mobility and blowing out the ACL or the MCL is if he doesn't have enough ankle mobility. So if I'm stopping him here, his body has to compensate. And when he compensates, his leg is going to fold in and go around that ankle joint to compensate. So what's going to happen is valgus knee, right? So I'm going to show you the 10-minute squat test here, show you kind of how it works. We're going to acquire maybe a minute or two, just kind of get them loosened up. So go ahead and squat down in the regular squat position. Good. We have our toes pointed forward. That's a main key point. Knees out, relieving that stress on the inside of the knee. We're going to try and get the chest up. If you can't, that's fine, because we're looking at the ankle mobility right now. With mobility, I like to work from the bottom up. So if we assess the knee in this situation, we don't know if this ankle mobility is bad, right? So if we start with the ankle, then we know the ankle is okay, then we can move to the knee, right? It's a diagnosis of the problem. So what he's going to do is he's going to acquire some time here. He's going to kind of move back and forth, kind of feel where he's tight, try and get into these corners where that ankle is maybe a little bit tighter than it should be. Again, you're going to use this not pre-workout. Nobody wants to sit in a squat for 10 minutes and then jump up and do squats. Not a very good idea. Okay, good. Stand up. So, I'm going to have you squat down one more time in a second here. So now he's got a couple minutes into the squat. What he's going to do is back down. Now he's going to try and work his feet in. The main goal, the big overall picture goal of this would be to get our feet touching together, toes pointed forward, and still be in the perfect squat position. Good. And as you see, his toes kind of start to point out a little bit as he gets closer. This is probably what he's got, and that's fine. You just want them to gradually work in as much as they possibly can. Cool. Thank you. I'm going to use you this. Next slide. So exercises to increase mobility. You have hip mobility, ankle mobility, shoulder mobility. You can really work on mobility of any joint. And I'm going to show you really quick, we're going to run through something real quick, a hip mobility exercise that we can show our athletes so they can do it on their own. They can go home and they can do this stretch, and they will do it, you know, especially the guys that want to get better. It's easy. You can do it on the couch watching TV. It doesn't matter. The point is that they're doing it. And so come up. We're going to do a basic hip mobility. So if you put your right knee, can you switch so they can see it? Yeah. Thank you. So what we're going to do is we're going to drive our knee into this crease right here, put our ankle up, and what I want you to do is, put your foot here. Now all I'm going to ask you to do, I'm going to have you stay. You want the foot to line up with the femur. We're going to keep good anatomical position. And what he's going to do is he's going to take his hip, he's going to drive it into the ground. We're working right here. So he's going to drive in and drive out, drive in. You really want to flex the butt. You know, drive that hip into the ground. Good. So what your athlete's going to do is 2 minutes on each side. Not very hard, right? You can also do it against the couch. If you have a couch, just put your foot up, jam your leg back there, sit back, watch some TV. All right. The next drill is similar. What they're going to do right from here is they're going to drive the chest up. So now instead of driving the hip forward, we're driving the chest up, working that same area. Again, you're going to acquire 2 minutes on each side. 8 minutes, not much to ask for. So those are 3 good mobility exercises. You're good. 3 good mobility exercises that you can use, you can tell your athletes to use, and you don't need to be around to do it, but you're increasing their mobility and decreasing the rate of ACL, MCL, and meniscus injury. Next slide. So I kind of touched on this a little bit, when to do mobility exercises. You have pre-workout, post-workout, during workout. There's always, you know, some arguments about which one is better. You have your dynamic workout before. What I would say is, obviously don't do the 10-minute squat test before you squat. That's definitely a bedtime thing or a post-workout thing. I would probably not even do it post-workout. I would wait a little bit to get it done. The hip stretch, though, you could probably do post-workout. I know a lot of guys come in and they ask me to do it to them. Even pre-workout, I just give them maybe 10, 15 seconds of each side. Kind of loosen them up a little bit, gets them feeling a little bit better. You know, it varies on what you're doing. Dynamic warm-up does increase the mobility. It does increase the range of motion. We are working through that full working motion, and that's a great thing to have dynamic workout. But for these kind of things, I would do them post-workout or before you go to bed. Next slide. I wanted to talk to you guys about Rolfing. A lot of guys, they don't know about Rolfing. I think it's a pretty cool thing. We did it at Colorado. It's basically, it's mashing. I don't know if you guys have heard of mashing. But what it is a guy comes in and he basically steps on you in places, on your muscles, while you work the joint and you work your limbs through full ranges of motion. So he'll step on the inside of your leg and then you'll move it and you'll work out the kinks that you have in your leg. And the reason I put this up here is because when I did Rolfing, I literally felt like I was 2 inches taller the second I stood up. We did it during our workouts, and we also set up a time for people to come in on Wednesdays. We had like a 4-hour time slot where guys could come in and get matched. Next slide. Alright, the conclusion for mobility. If you don't have full range of motion, you're going to get hurt. I mean, let's be honest.
Hey, sorry about this. Give me a second. Sorry about that. We got some stuff. Give me a second.
At a high athletic level, you know, guys who can't move are going to get hurt. If they're not flexible, they're going to get hurt. And mobility isn't just flexibility. It's everything. It's strengthening. It's running through the whole range of motion, and its flexibility. Because flexibility is just lengthening a tight or short muscle. So remember, when you get hurt, you can't train. When you can't train, you can't get stronger. When you don't get stronger, you're falling behind your competition. You guys have any questions, comments? Sure. Yeah, what's up?